Okay, so we did -10 from the top, -10 from the left, and we'll click OK, and let's see what that does for us. Let's see what it does in the browser. Let's see about good old Firefox, and we'll save the CSS. Oh, there we go, and that seems to work pretty well. Oh, and here's what that 0 left margin does for us. The little sunburst is constraining to the left, and as we pull outward, once we get past that 1024 pixel mark, we go from our background image to this blue shade. And you can see I would have a little bit of guesswork, a little tweaking to do if I wanted that to match completely, but it's pretty close for right now. There we go. Let's go back to Dreamweaver, and oh, let's test this out in Safari as well. Yep, looks like that was a fairly decent call for Safari. We might have to tweak that that left margin a little bit. Oops. And there we go. Let's do that. Let's go into container. And I misspoke. I said margin, the left edge positioning. Let's do -7 pixels and see what that does for us. Safari, we'll test it, we'll refresh. There we go. Did you see that bump over? Yeah, and that's about right on for Safari. And something like that you may want to test in a few different browsers, and you may want to find out what browsers your clients are using, or your client's audience rather is using, to see how much testing you need to do, how many browsers you need to accommodate for this. Well, now let's see, we've got our container placed, and I can click on it. We get a highlight in both the design view and the code view of where that container is. Let's go inside that container. Oh, and here's where that extra bit of content will come in kind of handy. I can put my cursor there and go up to Insert, and I can insert the div tag that I made called Header. But before I do that, let's take a look at Header. Let's see what I've got in there. That logo, that wakey image with the fancy shadow and so forth on it that we saved out as a PNG, I've chosen to put that in as a background. I thought I could put, you know, if there were some weekly coupon special thing, I could pop that in as a placed graphic over top of it, or I could possibly put a line of text in there if I wanted to. This gives me a little bit of freedom, you know, beware, don't go in there alone, but I put it as a background image within Header. And so it'll show over top of the background image that I put in Container. Kind of a tricky way to do what is going to look like a placed image. I gave it no repeats. The box that I made for Header is 1024 wide by 138 pixels high. Where did I get that 138 pixels high? How did I know to make Header 138? I can go back to my Photoshop document. And when I select that slice, that top slice that I intended to be my header, I can double click on there, and I've got a width of 1024, a height of 138. And same with these other slices. I've got a little space in here before my navs even begin, and that's my sidebar is 142 pixels wide, by the way. You can see that right here, and this little space is 43 pixels high. And each of my navs, menu, here's the height and width for menu, here's for specials. And so I went through and I wrote down, I made myself some notes, and for lack of being able to show you a notepad here, I just used TextEdit, or on PC you could use the application called Notepad. And I made some notes for myself. The height of header is 138, the sidebar width is 142, that little space in between, you know, the top of the header and where my navs are going to start is 43 high, and I've got the height of each of those graphics just to make some notes for myself in case I need them. I could total these up if I needed to, but we've got kind of a cool workaround for that. In the meantime, here's my header, 138 pixels high. Cool. Positioning. I'm going to position these elements inside my container. My container used relative positioning to set the tone for everything else. And a number of these other IDs I'm going to position within my container at an absolute position. Inside of a relatively positioned container, I'm going to put a number of elements that are absolutely positioned. And there's a number of strategies like this that you can explore and read about as you run into challenges. Actually, I think this strategy will work for this particular page. So I've got this absolutely positioned. I've got it 0 from the top and 0 from the left. So it's going to constrain to this upper left corner of my container. And I'll click OK. And nothing happened because I was just showing you what's in the header. So let's go to that insert bar. I've got my cursor placed here inside of my container div, inside those two div tags. And I can do insert div tag now. And of course, for my ID list, container is no longer available because it's been used on this page, but I want header. There it is. Click. Whoops. Let's see. Wraparound selection. Oh, yeah, that's right, because I've got this text selected. Let's see. Header. And wrapping around the selection means essentially I've moved that content to the inside of my header. And about now I think I can get rid of that. I'll just select it and hit delete. So let's see what this looks like. There we go. No big surprises. I get my wakey graphic in there. And to the user, to the viewer, this all looks like one big graphic so far. We don't know if this is one giant placed graphic, if it's a couple of pieces and parts kind of sewn together. It all looks pretty seamless. So that's great. We'll keep going. And now here is my header. Here's my container. You can click through on this bottom bar, with any selected element, and you'll see not only highlighted in the design view, but in the code view where that all is. So right here on what's now line 15, I've got my entire div for header right there. I can, if I want, I can hit return up in the code view. Inside that container div, there's container. And I'm going to place my sidebar right there. Well, now what do I got for a sidebar? Let's take a look. And of course, all of these I did, to create these, I just went up to my CSS styles panel, did new, and in most of the cases I did an ID, except for body. I named the ID, named it sidebar, made sure that it was going into the same style sheet, and I clicked OK. And when I did, I got this dialog box and I was able to set the parameters. Here my sidebar, we determined from the Photoshop document that it was 142 pixels wide. I kind of arbitrarily gave it a height of 500, and of course the great thing about these CSS styles is you can go in and edit them as you go also. So I kind of arbitrarily put a height of 500 on it. We could change that as we go, or we could change the height back to none and just let it fill up with its content. But I'm going to put some other divs in here, so I wanted a nice big box in which to put those. Let's see, didn't give it any border. Here's what I did. I gave it some positioning. I gave this one absolute positioning. I brought it 138 pixels down from the top of container. So it's inside of container. I don't have to worry about that -10 that I did, the relative positioning I did with container. That doesn't necessarily have to be part of the math, which is great, because I'm placing this absolutely within my container at 138 pixels down from the top and 0 over from the left. So I'll click OK. And nothing's happened yet because I didn't tell it to place. I was just looking at what I did with my sidebar. So whoops, I'll go up to insert and I'll get insert div tag, and I'm going to say at the insertion point in this particular case because I've got an insertion point right there outside of my header div and inside of my container. Or I could say, let's see, before end of tag container. That would work too. Or not. I should have stuck with what I was doing. Here, I'll place my cursor at line 16. And, oh, I see what it did. It put it in the tag up here. So that's, well, that's a good lesson to learn on screen here, huh? So in between my div for header and then the end of that div container, I just hit return. And I put a little space there and I put my cursor there. So I'll do insert div tag. At insertion point, okay. And I'll put my sidebar there. Cool. Now that's what I expected. That's what I expected. Let's take a look at that. I'll save my CSS. Yeah, there we go. Content for ID sidebar goes here. And there's nothing to see in there just yet. But that's what we expected. I'm going to get rid of that content because we've got a full box all set up there. Now I've got another rule. My last ID here I made for navs. So I'll double click on that and let's see what I did. I didn't put a background in. I'm going to put these navs in as placed images. I'm going to make an actual nav bar like we did in the previous assignment. But what I do have, I've got a width of 142. I didn't put a height on it. The height is going to expand to accommodate its content. But I did do some positioning. I also positioned this as an absolute. It's going to be absolutely positioned within sidebar. I'm going to put this inside that little sidebar box. This is my nav box. It's going to be absolutely positioned within the sidebar. It's going to have a width of 142. It'll be 43 pixels down from the top. Why 43? That was that space. And how do I know that I need 43 pixels for that space? That goes back to my Photoshop document. And it's this slice right here, because my navs are going to be what was before slice 4, 5, and looks like slice 11. These numbers of the slices get a little convoluted sometimes, but it's these 3 slices I want to accommodate, and I want to leave some space up top where this number 2 slice was. But I don't need a graphic in there. I don't need anything taking up bandwidth in there. I've already got my background graphic. So I just needed that height of 43 in there. So let's see here. Yeah, height of 43 for my space. And that's why I've got this top placement here in my navs. I've got a top placement of 43, and it's absolutely positioned inside of sidebar. So I click OK. Nothing happened yet because I'm just looking at the navs. Let's do insert. Now let's be sure I'm inserting that inside of sidebar. Here's sidebar up in the code. It's on line 16. There's the beginning of div. There's the end div right there. I'll just pop a cursor in between those and put my cursor on line 17 in between the beginning of sidebar and the end of sidebar. And under insert, I'll do insert div tag. Get an ID navs is the only one left. I've used everything else. So I'll insert navs. Oh, there we go. Content for ID navs goes here. Cool. And in fact, that's exactly what it'll look like in Firefox. And you see it's this little bit of written content is spaced further down. That's more like where I wanted it from my Photoshop document. So I'm about to put some content in there. Well, this is cool because I've got this highlighted now, either in my code or in my design view. And up here I can go up to insert and get rather than a regular old image, insert, rather than this image, which is just the little tree icon, you can click and hold on that arrow, of course, and you can get rollover image, or what we really want is navigation bar. And we can add a number of items here. Let's see, so our first item was menu. Element name, you can just use lowercase, no spaces. This is kind of a reference name. It's not going to show up much of anywhere at all. And you can browse within your images folder and your root folder. Browse for those up states and browse for the over states. you can put in your alt text, click, and whoops, hello, let's spell, click here for menu. And that can be plain language, upper and lowercase, spaces are fine. You probably want to spell things out because remember this is for those auditory browsers out there. And if you have your pages that this will link to set up already, you could enter that. I don't, but I know I would call this page menu.html that I'm going to link to. Now here's something. If you click Use Tables, it's going to build some tables in here. If you deselect Use Tables, it's going to build this with without using tables. I'll click and show you what happens. Here we go. And now I've got some tables set up, which isn't horrible, but it's something that we don't necessarily have to do. I'm going to undo that, and let's try that again. So we can do Insert in that menu, and rather than Image, you click and drag to get navigation bar. I'll do Menu, and that's element name is just for reference in the code, so use lowercase, no spaces. Browse for those up and over states. There's up. We'll browse for the over state, and this is why I love to do that _U_O. Then I know I can see right there by the PNG or the JPEG ending. I know exactly what I've got. Alt text. Let's see if I can spell the word click this time. Click here for menu and menu.html. Cool, and I'm going to deselect Use Tables. Thank you very much. And here's the one. Know ahead of time. You can edit a lot of things in this Insert Navbar menu, but this is not one of them. You have to decide right at the onset if it's horizontal or vertical. This is going to be horizontal. Thanks. And there it is. Okay, so I've got an up and over state. I'm not going to mess with the other states that are possible. And let's just see what that looks like. Oh, now right about now I can also get rid of this extra content that was in there. That'll put that menu item right where I want it. Cool, and there's my rollover. How nice is that? And that corresponds pretty well, I think, with the intent of our original Photoshop document. So we're in good standing so far. And now, having done this, I can I can go add to that navigational bar under my Insert panel. But take a look here at what that wrote for us. That wrote some nice script in there for us. No tables, no cumbersome tables. And so let's go up into Insert and let's get, now each page can only have one nav bar and one already exists. Would you like me to modify the existing one? Why, yes, thank you, Dreamweaver. And there it is. There is exactly what we put in, and you can click the little plus sign here to add more. Now be sure, as you stack these up, be sure that you've got the one highlighted under which you want that new piece. Let's see, and the other one was specials. Specials, and again, element name, all lowercase, no spaces is great. Browse for that up and over state. Alt text. And you can put in your URLs, specials.html. And we are telling it to preload images. That's that first thing I had to delete when I kind of started over on this page. Let's see, yeah, menu, specials, and let's continue with that navbar. I could have just done this all at once, probably should have. Kind of clicked OK just out of habit, but you know, we can go back and keep editing this. Now here's the thing. I want to select specials and then add. There we go, unnamed. And the last one was location, right? I'll browse for those up and over states. Location up, location over, Super. And I didn't know if you saw that. It flashed a little preview there to indicate what we had. And click here for location and hours. Now remember, our graphic said location and hours. I've been kind of abbreviating that location, but here in the alt tag, it's a chance to, utilize the full title. And I will quite likely just call this page location.html, so that's what I'll use there for the link. Terrific. And I'll save, and let's preview in Firefox, and we're right back to where I started at the beginning. Here I've got my title, no rollover there. My page is kind of behaving, constraining to that left edge. I've got rollovers. Well, I've got rollovers on 2. I don't know what happened with location. That's something I'd have to troubleshoot. But I do have these, and they seem to be working. I can click on them, and it'll tell me, oh yes, I couldn't find menu.html. Thank you very much. But at least I know that's where it would be heading if I had a page by that name. So here's my home page so far, and it's not bad. It's kind of living up to the Photoshop document that got things started for us. And so there we go. That should kind of wrap up lesson 2.